RPGs, but generally I stay away from highly repetitious games. I like to one and done. I like those big epic episodes, and I like the climaxes, and I just like to run through a game. But these are the games that I did play, that I started to tiptoe my way into the ideology or the religion of grind. Some of you guys live it, man. And there are some older games out there, some Eastern games. There's games all over that a lot of people are really just satiated by with that dopamine rush you get from, looting and constantly killing hordes of enemies or what have you. You love the RNG loot box pinata of, beating the boss and, oh man, look at that sweet drop. I get it, guys. You love it. Me, not so much. But these are the games I dip my toes into, and I'm starting to maybe get it. I'm going down the rabbit hole, so go with me, guys. Top 10 games to grind. Okay, so starting out is a game that I did one and done. 1, 2, 3, freaking Bloodborne, and I can't wait to play more. Dark Souls, I'm gonna mainly focus on here though. Dark Souls did just get a re-release, a remix, a remaster, whatever. I think it's a good game to actually grind in. Some people would say that it's a one and done game, which I did one and done, but this was a game that I actually started to replay, and I almost never do that, guys. This is a game that you can actually replay, redo, remix. You can actually redo a lot of characters, change around the different archetypes. It's really fun for speedrunning too. Even if you're brand new to speedrunning, a lot of people will just watch you. You get tons of views on Twitch, man. So you can really jam to Dark Souls, and to a lesser extent, Bloodborne. I really think Dark Souls 2 has like a huge variety of starting, but basically, Dark Souls is a great game that, yeah, you can just play it. Most of the games on this list, you can just play it, and then, you do what it does best. Fight the bosses, finish the game, whatever. But Dark Souls also has a great deal of replay value, and there are proper RPG mechanics in here which can be gamified, and of course that means grinding. There's actually just tons of it's a series on YouTube of people just grinding away at different builds, grinding away, speedrunning, a lot of stuff. You can kind of bend what you define as grind, but I think starting out the list, I wanted to start with this type of grind, a more repetitious, restart the game over and over type of grind with Dark Souls. Next up, we have Borderlands, which is, again, a game that you can just beat once and be done with it. But if you played Borderlands, then you know that you can just keep going on and on and on and on. And also being an RPG shooter, which I guess we define those as looter shooters now, this was really the Atlas, the father of that genre. Yeah, you can have some different builds. There's definitely some replay value with some of the different classes and characters. And when you beat the game, you can restart, and then you can just keep going on and on. It just gets bonkers and bonkers and bonkers. And it's a really satisfying game. All the jokes, I mean, at least for 1 and 2, I think they kind of land and they punch. Okay, it's silly, it's cheesy, but man, just seeing the damage numbers fly up, tackling, because it is kind of a pseudo-open world, tackling some of these different situations, these different bases, these different quests with different weapons, and, coming at it from a literal different direction. I think it's a fun game that can be replayed and then consistently just grinded and grinded and grinded on. I knew a dude that basically lost his life to this for like a whole summer. So Borderlands, it's a more compact game. It's not as online as probably the rest on this list, and it doesn't have competitive seasons or anything like that, like Dark Souls. You can one and done it, but also for a boxed game, it's actually legitimately pretty freaking repetitive, and I think quite a good grind. Yeah, number 8, Tree of Savior. This is a game that I've got light experience with. However, Tree of Savior, I know I know some of you guys are gonna be like, oh, well, Ragnarok really should be on this list. Guys, I can only tell you my personal experience, okay? Now, I didn't really play Ragnarok, but Tree of Savior, I did jam to a little bit. And I think it's a gorgeous game. I just think that it really emphasizes the grind. Maybe to a point where it's a negative, but hey, in a top 10 games about grind, I'm probably going to mention one of the grindiest games out there. Tree of Savior is a pretty interesting game, I think, that when it comes to mobile, especially, is probably going to be legitimately like a decent game, but its launch was weak. And I think some people said the game is a little bit more appropriate now. It's starting to find its home now, and that's going to be for the grindy dudes. If you like grinding, checking out lots of different classes, and apparently there's like a lot of branching stuff you can do with it. Some interesting things that happen, but basically, it's going to be very very grindy. So lower on the list, despite me really liking the mechanics, really liking the characters. I like some other things in some other games better, so I'm gonna rank them higher. But for people who just want to grind, who want content to consist, well, if I could say it more, like I will, I probably have a counter of 100 already. If you want stuff to grind, which grinders do, well, you can grind in Tree of Savior. Next up on our list, we have RuneScape. Now, RuneScape is a game that I actually rage quit live. I was doing a full review, okay? I was streaming it, and I was like, you know what? This grind is boring. But here's the thing, guys. I have to try to be objective with these lists. So even though I personally found the grind boring, it's not as action-packed as basically everything else on this list, but there is something to it, especially when you're grinding out in the wilderness. I really do appreciate some of the other aspects of RuneScape as well, like the questing, because those are kind of integrate with the grind a little bit, and it kind of depends on the version of RuneScape that you're playing as well, because there's a couple, and it's coming to mobile, so like mobile games are really fun to grind too. I think it could be acceptable, old school RuneScape on, mobile. Anyways, RuneScape is a game that you will see consistently very high on Twitch. And if you play it like a social game, if you play it like a game between, matches in a MOBA, if you play it like a game that you can just kind of jam to and do other things while doing it, I think a lot of people looking for a grindy game are looking for a game like RuneScape, so I have to put it on the list, and I know pretty higher. I'm not going to put it all the way at the top, despite its popularity, because of its grind, because of my own personal preference. Can only give you guys my experience. But overall, I can see the addiction with RuneScape. But I think I'm more of a one-and-done person now. Of course, I'm dipping my toe into the grind. But let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Is RuneScape worth getting into as a brand new player, or should we just go RuneScape 3, do the quests, and then done it? Yeah? So, please, let me know. Okay, next up, I'm gonna do a twofer. Now, this might seem a little bit unfair, but these games are very similar in ways, and they're directly inspired from a predecessor. So, Diablo 2 spawned, obviously, Diablo 3 eventually, but then it also spawned a couple of other, copycat games, and I'm gonna also list Path of Exile. So, Path of Exile is free to play, but don't get me wrong, Path of Exile is not the free to play Diablo 3. They are different games, but I'm slotting them here because I think for the same reason you would want to play one or the other, in a grind list, yeah, they got it. So very interesting and very uniquely to these games is they actually have competitive seasons. So you can make a new character and you just grind up all the way, you push yourself as far as you can, the craziest, most OP builds, fighting the craziest, most insane monsters that'll just wall up against you and smash you in one hit. You keep going and going and going until you can't go any further. So these are actually competitive PvE games. Very fun, and you can also co-op them, of course. One and done, Path of Exile, I think is my preferred. I actually really think it's better, more poetic. It's overall just better writing. It's a more intriguing world to me, coming from Dark Souls fandom. So I like the more brooding aesthetic of Path of Exile. I think a lot of people love Path of Exile, hugely popular game. So if I had to choose one or the other, I'm gonna pick Path of Exile, but I think I definitely need to commend Diablo 3. Playing it on PS4 with shared screen co-op has been a blast with the Paladin or the Crusader character. I'm enjoying it. Hopefully you guys are too, but Path of Exile, absolutely. No excuse you guys haven't tried it yet. But I will say also the edge goes to Path of Exile past my personal experience, because if you like grinding, then you generally like grinding because you have customized builds and you want to see how far you can test that build, almost like it's a little sandbox of sorts, a test bed. Oh my god, the customization of Path of Exile with the mixing and matching of abilities is like second to none. All right, yeah, next we have Albion Online. This is a proper MMORPG sandbox style. Think RuneScape, but without the questing. Now, this is going to be polarizing to some people because it does have PvP. And now RuneScape has a little bit of that, Dark Souls has a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's more evasive in those games. But Albion Online, it's mainly a PvP game. So it's like, how do you grind in a PvP game? Actually, you can straight up Farmville, you can straight up do trading. There's lots of different kinds of grinds and lots of different kinds of playstyles. Some people just want to play like the economy game, right? In Albion Online, you can just grind PvP. You can literally just sit there all day and just do duels. I don't know if you really consider that grinding, but Albion Online is so high on the list because I really appreciate the PvE-VP balance. So if you do want to grind PvE, say like a solo player, play it like you would like, I don't know, like Diablo or Path of Exile, run around dungeons and just smash face with your, your solo build. Well, you got to be careful and you might need to fine tune your build because there is PvP. So you need to either run away, play the mouse, or you have a ganking build, so you might farm a little bit slower, but whenever somebody shows up, boom, pow, you jump on and spear him in the face. I really like that aspect that the other solo friendly or, just straight up single player action RPGs don't really have. So for that, it's higher on the list, but at the same time for that, I know it's polarizing to a lot of people who like to grind. You like to just focus, do your grind, and not worry about anything else. So, give and take here. I put it here pretty high up, but hopefully you guys understand. Albion Online is getting a new update, and it's actually doing pretty good right now. So even if you don't like PvP, I think you should peel some eyeballs onto Albion Online. All right, guys, and number 3, I'm going to put the antithesis, I guess, on a lot of the concept that you guys have for grind. So that's stuff like Musou games, right? Like warrior games, Dynasty Warriors and stuff like that. A lot of beat 'em ups, brawlers can be considered grindy. A lot of these action RPGs have hordes of enemies that you just swath through, right? You just slap them silly and blast them apart. Monster Hunter is different. Monster Hunter is a grinding game. It is filled with repetition, except you're not fighting lots of little monsters. You're just fighting the one big one, basically. Now, there is a really decent grind to this game. Of course, you're just kind of chunking through chunky monsters with chunky weapons. So it's very different, and I think it's really good to have on like your gaming palette, your daily diet of grind. Maybe you should have a game that has hordes of enemies, and then maybe you should have a Monster Hunter that you log into daily. I think it's a fun game. It can get tiring. The hunts can go on for like 40 minutes. Especially whenever you start doing like dual hunts or you start trying to fight all 3 of the big monsters in there, and you start doing more and more and you start becoming more efficient. That's what the game is about. It's not just about going in and fighting a boss and then, hey, you're done with the game. No, it's about refighting the bosses over and over and over again with different weapons, different builds, different strategies, and trying to become more efficient, which is exactly what you do in other grinding games. This is an action RPG. I think most action RPGs are pretty grindy. I think you'll have a pretty good time, and I'm pretty sure this is well known, right? Am I mistaken? Is this well known? Does this belong on the list? I'm pretty sure it does, because that's the vibe I'm getting. Hopefully you guys are as well. Now, our number 2 is a game that really opened my eyes to the concept of grinding. Now, Dark Souls was like, okay, I can see why people do this, but Black Desert Online was like, okay, now I am doing this. I was stuck in it. It sunk its teeth into me. And I started out with a tamer, I had fun with that. And then I switched over to, Dark Knight. And I started playing all these different classes because they're so beautiful. The action combat is so insane. The combos are pretty unique and interesting. I love the mechanical feel of the game. And that's something that you're going to hear a lot when people talk about grinding games, is that it makes their brain feel good. It just feels good to play a lot of these games. Now, a lot of that is just chemical reaction. It's the reward center lighting up. But with Black Desert Online, it literally viscerally feels good. I think especially when you play the Striker or one of the more mobile classes in this game. And I also have it number 2, a little bit higher up, just like Albion Online, because I do like PvP. So this is a grinding game that does incorporate PvP. It's not number 1 though, because of that. I understand some of you guys hate it. I get it. So it's number 2. But this is a game that has a lot of different kind of grind as well, just like Albion, with trading grind. You have monster grind, more monster grind, and did I say monster grind? Because that's what you're going to be doing a lot of. But there are some other things you can do. It is a pseudo sandbox. There are some other options. There's economy grind. You do actually have this sort of enterprise thing that you can do. There, you can build ships. You can do crafting, and there's a couple of different things that you can do that I kind of appreciate. But yes, for the most part, you play it because it looks beautiful. It's got crazy action combat. It's open world PvP. So there's always that kind of to worry about, just a little bit. It's really not as intense as Albion. Don't worry about it. But it is there. It's a flavor. I think it's nicely added. You can join some guild wars and the monsters. Tons of monsters. It's super arcade. This is not an immersive game whatsoever. You jump in and you're gonna just slay, dude. You're gonna go full berserk and just slaughter so much. And it looks good on screen and it feels good from your hands, the fingertips, all the way to your tongue. I'm telling you, man, Black Desert Online can taste pretty good. All right, guys, but number 1, you didn't see it on the list yet, so you knew it was going to be number 1, and that is going to be Warframe. Now, Warframe is grindy because that's based on design. That's how the game had to survive. It had to create a very repetitious and grindy game to kind of be created. If you guys watch the NoClip documentary, you know what I'm talking about, or if you played from alpha like I did. But now the game has gone into more of a cinematic experience, like we're actually getting cinematic quests and things, so don't worry, Warframe isn't just for grinders, but like 80%, and you're gonna transition into the grind eventually. It's gonna force you. You have to grind in this game. Whether you like it or not, I think the game is still worth it to an extent. It is free to play. You can try it. It's a pretty fair monetization scheme. Not perfect, but in the end, when it comes to grinding, okay, for every reason, mostly every reason I like Black Desert Online, the visceral feel, oh my freaking god, Warframe actually lets you feel the power fantasy. Like if you have Volt, have a speed build with a melee, and you're moving so fast that you cannot react fast enough in real life. That's when a game is good. When the power fantasy is so powerful that you in real life, as a gamer, can't even game the game. It's just like out of your control. That is how good Warframe is. It is so fantastic. Literally, the power fantasy is insane. It's actual insanity. So it feels good. It looks good. It's going to play good on any machine, unlike BDO and like a lot of games on this list. It's going to just give you that explosivity. So a lot of people looking to grind. They're looking for games that allow you to just jump in and jump out. You don't need to just sink tons of time into it, which a lot of these MMOs do, or like Monster Hunter, 40-minute hunts. No, Warframe, you could just jump in for a single alert. You could just jump in for a couple of dungeons, or you can go into the plains and just sit there and fish for all day. I don't know. There is a really good mix of different kinds of grinds and a good mix of different timetables for Warframe. And oh my god, yes, it's going to keep you coming back with those alerts. It's going to keep you coming back with those daily events, those daily mostly daily, weekly updates, episodic stuff coming in, new content, always new toys to grind. And that's what's beautiful about Warframe, is it's a toy box. We're getting new boxes now, hell yeah, but we get tons of toys. New Warframes, new guns, always something to grind for, always something to be rewarded with. A lot of these games on this list don't quite reward you as much as Warframe. And for free. For free, you can play and you get ridiculous guns, ridiculous characters with ridiculous abilities, and you're gonna have a sensation. Even if you hate it, you will come away with some memories. And if you like those memories and you wanna keep making more, Warframe has always got some grind to grind. Well, anyways, guys, I hope this list wasn't too weird for some of you. I know a lot of you guys really don't like the term grind. It does have a negative connotation, but I just want to say one last time, as somebody who normally hates grind, and I really actually hate the general concept of it, even though I went to game design school and I know how necessary it can be, I think in a lot of ways it does pervert the gameplay. I have to agree with you, but sometimes, with at least these games, in some cases, I think you can have a really freaking good time and it can feel really good. So, that's what I gotta say. Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. And if you guys want to see me grinding away at some of these games, I'll be streaming over at twitch.tv/Skylink. Hopefully guys follow over there because that's basically my second job. And that's how we can keep doing weird, fun videos like this and, sharing it, keeping the hype alive.